In the cool, crisp air of a New York morning in the summer of 1941, the world was on the brink of chaos. The shadows of war loomed large, and the cries for valor echoed not only across Europe and Asia but also through the streets of America. Among those who heard the call was Jack Dempsey, a man once celebrated as the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. His fame had made him a household name, but as the clouds of war gathered, Jack felt a stirring deep within, a relentless urge to serve his country in a way that transcended the roaring crowds and glimmering lights of the boxing ring. Jack Dempsey was not just a fighter in the squared circle, he was a symbol of resilience and American spirit. With fists that could shatter bone and a heart that beat for the underdog, he was a man forged by the struggles of his youth. Born in 1895, in a small town in Colorado, Jack had fought his way through life, both in the ring and outside it. He became a champion not merely by defeating opponents but by embodying the dreams of millions who saw in him a reflection of their own aspirations. But now, the ring felt too small for the grand fight that awaited. As he watched the news and saw images of men and women rallying to defend their homelands, he knew he could not remain idle while the world faced a monumental struggle. The calls for enlisting swirled around him, and the air was thick with the stories of bravery and selflessness. Jack's heart raced at the thought of stepping into a new battle, one where the stakes were infinitely higher than any title he had ever held. It was not just about a belt or a trophy, it was about defending freedom itself. As the days turned into weeks, the scent of war wafted through the country, an uninvited guest that had taken residence in every heart. Jack's friends and family urged him to stay, to keep the legacy of Dempsey alive in the world of sport. But the itch to fight for something greater gnawed at him, and finally, he made his decision. With a mix of pride and anxiety, Jack walked into the enlistment office. The bustling room was filled with young men eager to serve, faces reflecting a blend of determination and fear. Jack's entry commanded attention. Even amid the sea of recruits, he stood tall, a warrior ready to embrace a new challenge. The day he enlisted was only the beginning. Jack found himself in the Navy, a realm far removed from the roaring crowds of Madison Square Garden. He traded his boxing gloves for a sailor's cap, and the ocean became his new battleground. Basic training was grueling, a test of endurance that brought back memories of his formative years in the ring. Yet, the discipline he had learned as a fighter served him well, and he quickly garnered the respect of his fellow sailors. Life on the ship was a stark contrast to the life he had once known. The vastness of the sea replaced the constrained confines of the ring, and though he was no longer the center of attention, Jack found a sense of purpose in the camaraderie of his fellow sailors. Together, they shared stories of home, of dreams deferred, and of families waiting for their safe return. Each night, as they gazed up at the stars, Jack could almost hear the cheers of the crowds from his past, transformed now into a silent promise of hope and determination. As the months rolled on, Jack's resolve only grew stronger. His days were filled with drills, navigation lessons, and the life of a sailor. But with each passing wave, he felt the weight of something greater upon him, the responsibility of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The fear of the unknown lurked in the corners of his mind, but Jack was no stranger to fear. He had faced it in the ring countless times, and now, he would confront it again, this time with a crew he had come to call family. In the spring of 1942, the realities of war struck close to home. Jack received a letter informing him that his ship would soon be deployed to the Pacific Theater. The news was both exhilarating and daunting. He was about to enter the heart of conflict, a far cry from the lights and cheers of boxing. Still, he understood clearly that this was his calling. It was a chance to be part of something larger than himself. As the ship sailed toward the Pacific, Jack spent his nights reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The memories of his boxing career flickered in his mind, but they were now intertwined with visions of valor and sacrifice. He thought of the men and women fighting on the front lines, of the sacrifices made by countless souls across the world. The weight of their struggles fueled his determination, and he promised himself that he would face whatever came next with the same courage he had displayed in the ring. His ship, braving the vast and unpredictable ocean, became a launching pad for his newfound purpose. Jack trained alongside his comrades, sharing his strength and experiences with them. He was not merely a boxer anymore, he was a leader, a friend, a brother in arms. The lessons he had learned about discipline and strategy in the ring now translated seamlessly to naval tactics, and he quickly became an invaluable asset to his crew. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the water, Jack felt a profound sense of peace amidst the chaos. He was part of a cause that mattered, a battle for freedom that resonated deep within his soul. The world of boxing had been a glorious chapter, but now he was writing a story that would be remembered for generations, one of bravery, sacrifice, and the unwavering spirit of America. While the fight was far from over, Jack Dempsey had left the ring for the sea, and in doing so, he had embarked on a journey that would cement his legacy not just as a champion in sports but as a hero in the hearts of those who understood the true meaning of courage. As the stars twinkled overhead, Jack knew he was no longer just a boxer, he was an American legend in the making, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. If you're captivated by stories of courage, heroism, and the spirit of resilience, join us on this journey. Subscribe to our channel to explore the tales of those who shaped history, like Jack Dempsey, and discover the remarkable stories that continue to inspire us today. Jack Dempsey stood at the crossroads of his life, weighing the glittering allure of fame against the call to arms resonating through the nation. It was a decision that would reshape his identity, one that stretched beyond the ropes of the boxing ring and into the tumultuous waters of the ocean. As he walked through the bustling streets of New York City, the sounds of laughter and chatter surrounded him, but they felt distant, almost surreal. The laughter of children playing in the park and the chatter of couples enjoying their day were reminders of the normalcy he longed to protect. The vibrant energy of the city was a stark contrast to the heavy burden he felt in his heart. Each step he took echoed with the weight of the choice he had made. His friends, loyal as they were, tried to persuade him to stay within the safety of the ring. They argued passionately about the importance of his legacy in boxing, how young fighters looked up to him, how his presence inspired them to dream bigger. But to Jack, the call of duty felt like a siren song, pulling him towards something far more significant than the cheers of adoring fans. He envisioned a future where those same fans could live without fear, where their children could grow up in a world unmarked by the scars of war. With determination etched on his face, Jack enrolled in the Navy. He was not just another recruit, he was a man with a storied past, a heavyweight champion who had danced with the greatest boxers of his time. His reputation preceded him, and his fellow sailors looked up to him with a mix of admiration and curiosity. What would a champion fighter bring to the battlefield? They were about to find out. As the days turned into weeks, Jack found himself at boot camp, surrounded by men from all walks of life. Some were fresh-faced youths who had never known hardship, while others bore the weariness of experience, their eyes hinting at battles fought long before the world erupted into chaos. Jack led by example, demonstrating that strength was not just about physical prowess but also about mental resilience. Together, they trained tirelessly under the sweltering sun, their camaraderie growing stronger with every grueling drill. One day, during a break in training, Jack found himself sitting on a bench, his uniform sticking to his skin, drenched in sweat. Next to him sat a young man named Tommy, a boy barely out of his teens, who idolized Jack. He spoke of dreams of glory and the thrill of combat, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "What's it like, Jack? Being the best? Do you think we'll be heroes?" he asked, his voice a mixture of excitement and fear. Jack turned to the boy, sensing the weight of his question. "Tommy, being a hero isn't about glory or fame. It's about doing what's right, standing up for those who can't. It's about sacrifice." The boy's eyes widened with a mix of admiration and confusion. Jack continued, "You'll learn that bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the courage to face it. We're all scared, but we fight for something bigger than ourselves." As the months passed, the world outside continued to spiral into chaos. The echoes of gunfire and the roar of planes filled the air, mingling with the distant memories of a world at peace. Jack and his comrades received their orders. They were to be deployed to the Pacific Theater, where the war raged fiercely. The reality of their mission set in, and the gravity weighed heavily upon them. It was no longer just a training exercise, they were about to face the enemy head-on. On the eve of their departure, Jack gathered the men around. He looked into their eyes, seeing a mixture of anticipation and dread. Tomorrow, we stand together. What we face will test us in ways we've never imagined. But we are stronger together. Remember this, we are fighting not just for our country, but for every man, woman, and child who dreams of a better future. The men nodded, their spirits lifted by Jack's words. They knew they had a champion among them, a man who had fought not just in the ring, but for the heart and soul of their nation. As the ship cut through the waves, the salty breeze whipped at their faces, carrying with it the promise of battle. Jack stood at the bow, gazing out at the endless expanse of ocean, his heart a tumultuous sea of emotions. Memories of his boxing days flashed through his mind, the roar of the crowd, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. But this was different. There would be no applause, no trophies to lift high. The stakes were life and death. When they arrived in the Pacific, the reality of war hit hard. The landscape was scarred, a testament to the ferocity of the battles fought before them. As Jack and his unit prepared for combat, he could feel the air thick with tension. The fear was palpable, but so was the camaraderie that had formed among them. They had trained as brothers and now would face the fire together. The first skirmish was brutal. Sounds of gunfire echoed around them, and the chaos of battle engulfed their senses. Jack fought with the same ferocity he had displayed in the ring, driven by a primal instinct to protect his comrades. In the heat of combat, he realized that the courage he had spoken of was not just a whisper, it was a roaring fire that ignited within them all. As they pushed forward, Jack saw the faces of his fellow soldiers, fear, determination, and bravery etched in every expression. They were no longer just recruits, they had become warriors, united in a cause greater than themselves. Each moment was a test of their resolve, each encounter a reminder of what they were fighting for. Amidst the chaos, Jack Dempsey emerged not just as a soldier but as a leader. He was transforming from a champion in the ring to a hero on the battlefield. The calls for valor that had once echoed through his life now took on a new meaning, shaping him into a legend whose story would resonate far beyond the confines of boxing. As the battle raged on, and the stakes grew ever higher, Jack knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would forever change him, one that would lead him through trials he had never imagined. The flames of war were consuming the world around him, but deep within, Jack Dempsey felt the fire of hope burning fiercely, guiding him toward a legacy that would transcend the ring, a legacy that would echo through the ages. To follow Jack's extraordinary journey and explore the myriad stories of bravery during World War II, subscribe to the channel. Join us as we dive deeper into the lives of those who changed the course of history, revealing the courage that defined an era. Jack Dempsey stood resolute on the bustling streets of New York, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. The cheers from the crowds that once lifted him to greatness now felt distant, as if they belonged to another life. The faces of fans and friends blurred into a sea of expectation, yet all Jack could see was the call to service beckoning him like a distant lighthouse guiding a lost ship at sea. The decision was made, he would enlist and trade the life of a champion for one of duty. With a firm commitment in his heart, Jack visited the local recruitment office. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as he stepped through the door, a man of courage ready to embark on an unfamiliar journey. The crispness of his military uniform contrasted sharply with the vibrant colors of the boxing world he was leaving behind. He was no longer just a champion, he was becoming part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. His enlistment stirred a wave of reaction. Some applauded his bravery, while others felt a pang of sorrow, knowing they were bidding farewell to a legend. As the news spread, the media seized the moment, crafting stories of the boxer-turned-soldier, capturing the hearts of a nation that yearned for heroes. Jack Dempsey, the man who had once captivated audiences with his prowess in the ring, was now preparing to face the greatest challenge of his life. After weeks of basic training, Jack found himself surrounded by men of all walks of life, united by a shared purpose. They were farmers and factory workers, teachers and students, all standing shoulder to shoulder, ready to defend their homeland. Amidst the camaraderie, Jack quickly established himself as a natural leader, using his experience in the ring to inspire those around him. He shared stories of triumph and defeat, reminding his fellow soldiers that true strength lay not only in physical might but in the spirit of perseverance. As they trained, Jack discovered a new kind of discipline. The boxing ring had taught him much about focus and determination, but military training demanded an unwavering commitment to teamwork and sacrifice. He learned how to work with his comrades, how to trust them with his life, and in turn, they learned to look up to him for guidance. In those grueling days, amidst the sweat and toil, a brotherhood was forged, a bond that would soon be tested in the heat of battle. Eventually, they received their orders. The destination was the Pacific Theater, a place where the sound of gunfire would replace the cheers of the crowd. As the men boarded the transport ship, Jack took a moment to reflect on the path that had led him here. His fists, once instruments of sport, were now symbols of a fight for freedom. Each wave that crashed against the ship echoed the battles that lay ahead. The sea, both beautiful and treacherous, whispered tales of valor and loss, stories he would soon become part of. The journey across the ocean was long and filled with uncertainty. Jack and his fellow soldiers shared their hopes and fears, each man revealing a glimpse of the lives they had left behind. They spoke of families waiting for their return, of dreams deferred, and of the love that propelled them into the unknown. Jack's stories of his boxing career served as light-hearted moments amid the somber reality of war. He recounted the thrill of his greatest matches, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat, reminding them all that they were fighting not just for their country, but for the future they all longed for. As they approached the shores of their destination, the atmosphere shifted from camaraderie to taut anticipation. The men knew that they were stepping into a world filled with danger, but there was also a sense of purpose that ran deep within them. They were warriors now, and they would not falter in the face of adversity. Jack's heart pounded as they landed on the beach, the roar of gunfire greeting them like an uninvited storm. In that moment, he understood that there would be no turning back. The chaos of battle engulfed them, a whirlwind of noise and confusion that challenged everything Jack had ever known. Amidst the tumult, he found himself instinctively slipping into a rhythm, much like the dance he had performed in the ring. He moved with precision and purpose, guiding his fellow soldiers with the strength of his spirit and the lessons he had learned in his years as a fighter. The battlefield became a grim version of the ring, where survival was the only victory worth claiming. As days turned into weeks, Jack faced trials that would haunt him forever. He witnessed bravery and sacrifice that echoed the valor of the greatest champions, yet the cost was steep. The faces of fallen comrades etched themselves into his memory, each loss a reminder of the fragility of life and the price of freedom. In the quiet moments between battles, Jack would reflect on the lives lost around him, ignited by a fierce desire to honor their sacrifices. Throughout this harrowing time, the letters from home kept Jack grounded. They were filled with words of support and love, reminders of the life he had fought to protect. Each letter was a lifeline, a whisper of hope that fueled his resolve. They reminded him why he had traded the ring for the chaos of war, and every word served as a reminder of the strength found in love and loyalty. As Jack continued to fight alongside his brothers in arms, he became a beacon of hope. His experience and leadership shone through, encouraging those around him to push through their darkest moments. He wasn't just Jack Dempsey, the champion of the boxing world. He had transformed into Jack Dempsey, a soldier fighting for justice and liberty. The spirit of a fighter coursed through him, and he would not rest until every ounce of that spirit was used to defend his country. Each battle was a testament to his resilience, but as the months dragged on, the weight of war began to take its toll. Jack could feel the fatigue setting in, not just in his body but deep within his soul. Yet, he pressed on, driven by the memories of those who had believed in him, both in the ring and on the battlefield. He was not alone in this fight. A legion of brave souls stood with him, each one a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity against the forces of tyranny. In those moments of darkness, when doubt threatened to creep in, Jack would close his eyes and envision the cheers of the crowd. He remembered the electrifying energy of the ring, the thrill of victory, and the promise of home. It was this vision that propelled him forward, that reminded him why he had answered the call. And as each day passed, he felt his purpose sharpen, his resolve cementing into something unwavering. The battles were brutal and unforgiving, but amidst the terror, Jack Dempsey discovered the true essence of courage. He learned that it was not the absence of fear but the willingness to face it head-on that defined a hero. Jack was no longer just a fighter, he was a warrior in every sense of the word, standing firm against the tide of darkness that sought to engulf the world. As the war raged on, Jack remained steadfast, forever embodying the spirit of resilience and hope. He was not just fighting for victory, he was fighting for a legacy, a promise to the future that freedom would prevail. The echoes of his past as a boxer now intertwined with his present as a soldier, creating a tapestry of bravery woven through the struggles of a nation. Jack's journey was far from over, but with each passing day, he grew closer to understanding the true meaning of valor. And in the depths of conflict, as he stood shoulder to shoulder with his comrades, he realized that like in the ring, the fight was never just about one man. It was about the collective spirit of humanity rising together against the shadows, forging a path toward a brighter dawn. If you find yourself captivated by Jack Dempsey's incredible journey and the stories of those who fought for freedom during World War II, consider subscribing to our channel. Join us as we explore more tales of courage, sacrifice, and the indomitable human spirit throughout history. Your support helps us continue sharing these vital stories, ensuring that the legacy of heroes like Jack Dempsey lives on for generations to come. As the days turned into weeks, Jack found himself at boot camp, surrounded by men from all walks of life. Some were fresh-faced youths who had never known hardship, while others bore the weariness of experience, their eyes hinting at battles fought long before the world erupted into chaos. Jack led by example, his strong presence an anchor for the newcomers. He understood the importance of camaraderie, and he took the responsibility of lifting their spirits seriously. After all, he had faced adversity in the ring, and now he was ready to face it again under a different banner. The drill instructors were relentless, pushing the recruits to their limits. The sun beat down on them relentlessly during training exercises, and the sound of barking commands filled the air. Jack embraced it all, using the discipline he honed during his boxing career to motivate himself and his fellow sailors. He recalled the nights spent in the gym, the sweat pouring down his face as he fought against the odds, and he transferred that same determination to his military training. Days turned into nights, and nights into grueling exercises that tested their physical and mental endurance. There were moments when the exhaustion threatened to overwhelm Jack, but he never allowed himself to falter. He inspired others to push through the fatigue, sharing tales of perseverance from his boxing days. His voice rang out across the training ground, urging others on. Keep going! Every jab, every step, leads to victory. The recruits responded, drawing strength from his words. Slowly, a bond formed among them, a brotherhood forged in sweat and shared grueling experiences. As the weeks progressed, the recruits were assigned to various roles within the Navy. Jack was designated as a shipboard gunner, responsible for manning the ship's anti-aircraft weaponry. The transition from the boxing ring to the deck of a ship was surreal. Gone were the bright lights and roaring crowds, replaced by the steady hum of machinery and the distant sound of the ocean waves crashing against the hull. Silent moments of reflection would come upon him, where he would look out at the vastness of the sea, contemplating the journey that had brought him here. One day, during a training exercise, Jack and his crew were preparing for a simulated air attack drill. The tension was palpable as they geared up, their hearts pounding in unison with the thundering of the ship's engines. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline, reminding him of the crowd's roar when he stepped into the ring. Yet, this time, the stakes felt dramatically higher. Lives were on the line, their lives, and the thought weighed heavily on him. As the exercise commenced, Jack focused on his weapon, his training kicking in like a well-worn routine. The sound of gunfire erupted around him, and he could see the bright flashes of light illuminating the dark sky above. Jack was in the zone, every bit the champion he had once been, and he felt the excitement coursing through him. It was a different kind of fight, one that required precision and teamwork more than mere strength. He and his comrades worked seamlessly together, a well-oiled machine amidst the chaos. They managed to down several targets, their cheers rising above the noise of the simulated battle, filling Jack with a sense of purpose. However, with each passing drill, a grim realization settled in. This was not just practice, the reality of war loomed closer. Stories of ships lost and men gone echoed through the barracks at night, shared in hushed tones between soldiers. Jack listened intently, his heart heavy as he absorbed the gravity of what they prepared for. He thought of his friends, the families who depended on them, and the innocent lives they were fighting to protect. As a man who had once thrived on the thrill of competition, he now understood that this was an entirely different arena, one with far more significant consequences. Months passed, and the day finally arrived when Jack and his crew received their orders. They were to join a fleet setting out to support the Allies in the Pacific. The weight of the moment was suffocating. Jack stood on the deck, the salty breeze whipping through his hair, gazing out at the horizon where the sky met the ocean. He felt a mix of excitement and dread. The fight was no longer theoretical, it was a reality. He was filled with a fierce determination to prove that he was more than a champion in the ring. He would stand tall in the face of adversity for his country and his fellow sailors. As they set sail, Jack looked around at the faces of the men who had become his brothers. He saw the same mixture of hope and fear reflected in their eyes. Jack understood their thoughts, they all shared the same silent prayer for courage and strength. He made a promise to himself and to them. He would do everything in his power to protect them and bring them all back home. The ocean roared beneath them as the battleship cut through the waves, headed toward the unknown. Each wave was like a challenge, a reminder of the fight that lay ahead. Jack felt a sense of purpose igniting within him. He was not just a boxer anymore, he was part of something much bigger, a fight for freedom and for the people he loved. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the water, Jack stood resolute on the deck. The memories of the boxing ring seemed distant, yet the lessons he learned there were woven into the fabric of his resolve. He knew that he would face his fears head-on, as he had done countless times before. But this time, it was not just for a title, it was for a chance to preserve the lives and dreams of countless others. In the coming days, as the fleet approached enemy territory, Jack would find that the fight he was entering was unlike any he had ever known. The stakes were higher, the risks greater, and the outcome uncertain. But as he stood there, a champion at heart, he felt a flicker of hope. He was ready to step into this new arena, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And perhaps, in doing so, he would become an American legend, not just for his prowess in the ring, but for his courage on the battlefield. As the ship sailed toward destiny, the journey ahead beckoned, filled with trials that would test the very core of who he was. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he falter in the face of adversity? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain, Jack Dempsey was no longer just a fighter, he was a man ready to defend his country with every ounce of strength he possessed. If you find Jack's journey compelling and want to follow his remarkable transformation as he becomes an American hero, consider subscribing to our channel for more incredible stories from World War II. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months as Jack Dempsey and his comrades continued their grueling training. Each dawn brought with it the sharp, biting chill of morning air, yet they rose with unyielding determination, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Their days were filled with drills, combat training, and lessons on military strategy, but the bond they forged in those moments often felt like the camaraderie of a sports team preparing for a championship bout. Jack thrived in this new environment. He channeled his fighting spirit into every challenge, pushing himself and those around him to go beyond their limits. He found himself relaying the lessons he had learned in the boxing ring, the importance of tenacity, teamwork, and resilience. These lessons resonated deeply with his fellow soldiers, who looked up to him not just as a former champion, but as a brother in arms. Together, they faced the physical and mental trials of military life, transforming their fears into a collective strength that would serve them well in the days to come. As the training progressed, the reality of war began to sink in. Jack started receiving snippets of news from Europe, detailing the fierce battles raging across the Atlantic. He learned of brave soldiers who had already made the ultimate sacrifice, and with each story, the weight of his commitment grew heavier. Jack was no longer just fighting for his country, he was fighting for those who had already given everything. This sense of duty propelled him forward, solidifying his resolve. One fateful afternoon, as the sun hung low in a cloudless sky, the orders came down. Jack and his unit would soon be deployed overseas. The news sent a ripple of excitement and anxiety through the ranks. For many, this was the moment they had been training for others, it was a sobering reality they had hoped to avoid. Jack stood among them, feeling a mix of pride and trepidation. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but he also understood the importance of their mission. They were not just soldiers, they were protectors of freedom. As the day of departure approached, the men were granted a brief period of leave. Jack took the opportunity to visit his family. The streets of New York, once a backdrop to his triumphs, now felt different. As he walked through the familiar avenues, he was struck by the realization that his life as a boxer had transformed into something far more significant. He was acutely aware of the sacrifices his loved ones were making. His mother's eyes sparkled with pride, but behind them lay an unspoken fear. Jack tried to reassure her, telling her he would return home safe, but deep down, he too carried the weight of uncertainty. When the time came to say goodbye, Jack felt a lump form in his throat. His mother held him tightly, as if trying to impress upon him the importance of his mission. "You're not just a fighter in the ring anymore, Jack. You're a fighter for our country. Remember that," she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded, steeling himself against the emotions that threatened to overwhelm him. With one last glance back at the life he had known, he boarded the transport ship, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey across the Atlantic was filled with a sense of anticipation. Jack stood on the deck, watching the vast ocean stretch endlessly before him. The horizon seemed to blend into the sky, a reminder of the unknown that awaited them. As the ship rocked gently with the waves, he found himself reflecting on his boxing career. The cheers of the crowd and the thrill of victory felt like echoes of a distant past. Now, he was part of a different story, one that involved sacrifice, bravery, and the hope of a brighter future. Once they arrived in Europe, the reality of war hit Jack like a punch to the gut. The sights and sounds were overwhelming. The chaotic energy of the battlefield was a stark contrast to the controlled environment of the ring. He soon found himself in a makeshift camp, nestled in the hills overlooking a town that had seen too much destruction. The camaraderie he had built during training became even more vital as they prepared for the tasks ahead. Jack's natural leadership shone through, as he organized drills and shared strategies with his fellow soldiers. They learned to trust each other, not just as fighters, but as men who would stand together in the face of danger. Days turned into weeks, and Jack began to see the reality of combat. He witnessed the toll it took on his brothers in arms, the lives lost, and the scars left behind. Each loss weighed heavily upon him, a reminder of the fragility of life. Yet, amidst the chaos, Jack found moments of humanity. He remembered the faces of the children who played in the streets before the war, their laughter now replaced by fear. He knew that their mission was not just about fighting, it was about restoring hope to a world torn apart by conflict. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the camp, Jack gathered his unit for a moment of reflection. They shared stories, laughter, and memories of home, reminding each other of why they fought. Jack spoke of his boxing days, how every victory had been fueled by the support of his fans. "Now, you are all my fans," he declared, voice strong with conviction. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for every person who believes in freedom and justice. Let's show them what we're made of." The cheers that followed filled the night air, echoing with a sense of purpose that reinvigorated their spirits. In that moment, they were not just soldiers, they were a family bound by a common goal. Jack knew that challenges lay ahead, but he felt a renewed sense of hope, a belief that they could make a difference. As the stars twinkled overhead, Jack looked to the sky, remembering his mother's words. He was indeed a fighter, not just in the ring, but for something far greater. And as he lay down to rest, he made a silent promise to himself: he would do everything in his power to return home, not just as a soldier, but as a man who had fought for a better world. The journey was just beginning, and with every passing moment, Jack was becoming a legend, not just for his prowess in the ring, but for his unwavering commitment to the fight for freedom. Join us for the next chapter of Jack Dempsey's incredible journey by subscribing to our channel, and witness how this boxer-turned-soldier faced the greatest battles of his life. As Jack settled into his new role, he quickly learned the intricacies of operating the powerful anti-aircraft guns. The sounds of the Ocean became his new backdrop, a constant reminder of the vastness of the battles that lay ahead. He could hear the distant calls of the gulls and feel the salty spray of the sea, a world away from the thudding of boxing gloves against flesh. Yet, in this new life, he found a similar rhythm. Each day, he and his fellow sailors practiced their drills, honing their skills under the watchful eyes of seasoned veterans. The camaraderie that had blossomed at boot camp continued to strengthen as they forged their identities as sailors. Jack discovered that the ship was not just a vessel, it was a living entity. Each creak of metal and each wave crashing against the hull told stories of its own. The old sailors often shared tales of their previous deployments, and Jack absorbed their experiences like a sponge. He cherished the wisdom they imparted, the stories of bravery and sacrifice that inspired him to press on with determination. In return, he shared his journey from the boxing ring to the sea, captivating his audience with accounts of thrilling matches and the fierce competition that once defined him. In the evenings, after a long day of drills and adjustments, the crew would gather on deck, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. They would swap stories, sharing laughter and dreams while the stars twinkled overhead. It was during one such gathering that Jack felt a profound sense of belonging. These men, from every corner of the nation, had become his family. They were united by a common purpose, ready to face whatever the war might throw at them. As the days turned into weeks, Jack's anticipation grew. Word had spread through the ranks that their ship would soon be part of a larger convoy heading into the Pacific Theater. The thought of facing the enemy filled Jack with both excitement and dread. He had fought in the ring, but now the stakes were higher, lives depended on their success. The night before departure, Jack stood on the deck, staring out into the inky darkness of the sea. It was a moment of reflection, a time to gather his thoughts and prepare himself for the uncertainty that lay ahead. The morning light painted the sky in hues of orange and gold as the ship set sail. The crew moved with purpose, bustling around to ensure everything was in place. The heavy machinery hummed to life, and Jack felt the familiar adrenaline coursing through his veins. He took his position at the gunner's station, the weight of the weapon reassuring in his hands. Around him, his fellow sailors wore expressions ranging from excitement to apprehension, a mix of emotions that mirrored his own. Days at sea turned into a routine, punctuated by drills and watch shifts. Jack trained relentlessly, each pull of the trigger a reminder of the responsibility he bore. He led by example, encouraging others to maintain their focus amidst the monotonous rhythm of life aboard the ship. The ocean became both a friend and a foe, its silent depths hid dangers that could emerge at any moment. Jack's instincts sharpened, the years spent in the ring lending a quickness to his reactions. Then came the day that shattered the calm. A blaring alarm pierced the air, followed by the frantic shouts of the crew. Battle stations! Battle stations! The urgency in their voices ignited a fire within Jack. He sprinted to his post, adrenaline surging through him as he took aim at the horizon. His heart raced as he peered through the sights, scanning the skies for the enemy. The world around him became a blur, all that mattered was the mission. As planes swooped down, Jack's training kicked in. He remembered the drills, the countless hours spent practicing to hit a moving target. His breaths came in quick bursts as he steadied himself, focusing on the aircraft flying erratically above. With a steady hand, he pulled the trigger, sending a spray of bullets into the sky. The first shot found its mark, one of the enemy planes spiraled down, flames licking at its wings. The thrill of victory coursed through him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the chaos encircling him. The sky became a tapestry of smoke and fire, the sounds of explosions mingling with the cries of his comrades. Jack fought through the confusion, keeping his eyes trained on the skies, shouting commands to those around him, urging his fellow sailors to stay calm and focused. "We can do this. Hold your fire until you're sure." He pushed his own fears aside, standing tall as a leader amidst the storm. The battle raged on, each moment stretching into infinity. Jack's hands grew tired, but he refused to relent. The lessons he learned in the ring echoed in his mind: resilience, focus, and the will to push through adversity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last of the enemy planes fell from the sky. The ship erupted in a roar of triumph, relief washing over the crew. Jack felt a rush of pride, knowing they had fought fiercely together. They had become not just sailors but warriors, defenders of their homeland. As the dust settled and the reality of the battle dawned on them, Jack took a moment to breathe. The victory was bittersweet, a reminder of the severity of their mission. He looked around at his shipmates, seeing the camaraderie solidified in the heat of battle. They had emerged stronger, bound by a shared experience that would forever change them. With each passing day, Jack knew they would face more challenges, more battles. But he also understood the importance of hope, of resilience, and of brotherhood. Together, they would stand against the tide of war, ready to protect their country and each other. The ring may have been behind him, but the fight was far from over. As Jack continued to serve, he held on to the belief that each day was a chance to inspire, to lead, and to fight for a future worth living in. The journey was unfolding, and with every step, the legend of Jack Dempsey was being written anew, not just as a fighter in the ring, but as a fighter in the world's greatest struggle. For those who tuned in to hear his story, he hoped they would see the strength and unity and the power of unwavering resolve. If you want to follow Jack's journey through this tumultuous time and witness the events that shaped a legend, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Join us as we unveil more incredible stories of bravery, sacrifice, and the human spirit during World War II. Together, we can keep the memories alive. Challenges and heartbreak, yet he couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose swell within him. The boxing ring had prepared him physically, but now, he was ready to embrace the battlefield's emotional weight, drawing strength from the very essence of what it meant to be an American. Preparations for deployment took over the camp. Soldiers packed their gear with a fervor that reflected the urgency of their mission. Jack meticulously checked and rechecked his equipment, ensuring that everything was in order. He recalled the countless hours spent training, honing his instincts and skills. Those moments in the ring now seemed like a distant memory, overshadowed by the reality of war looming ahead. He was no longer just a fighter, he was a soldier, stepping into history. As the days dwindled, Jack grew increasingly aware of his comrades' emotions. The younger men, some barely old enough to drink, exhibited a blend of excitement and fear. They spoke of glory and honor, but Jack, with his years of experience both in the ring and in life, knew the truth. War was relentless and unforgiving, and the glory often lay buried beneath the rubble of shattered dreams. He did his best to reassure them, sharing stories of resilience and courage he had witnessed in the boxing world, weaving lessons of hope amid their anxieties. The day finally arrived, and the soldiers gathered at the docks, the air thick with anticipation. The vast ocean stretched before them, a powerful reminder of the journey they were about to undertake. Jack stood on the pier, gazing at the warships lined up like formidable beasts ready to pounce. The salty breeze whipped through his hair, carrying with it a sense of both dread and exhilaration. He could see the reflection of determination in the eyes of his comrades, mirroring his own. Once aboard, the ship rocked gently as it sailed into the unknown. Jack found a quiet corner on the deck, allowing himself a moment of reflection. He thought back to his days as a champion, where each fight had led to the roar of the crowd, the thrill of victory, and the bitter taste of defeat. But this was different. There would be no cheering fans, no glamorous accolades to seek. Instead, there were the faces of those he was fighting for, the family and friends who believed in him, and the countless men whose stories had been silenced too soon. Days turned into nights as they journeyed across the perilous waters. Jack took the time to talk to his fellow soldiers, listening to their dreams and fears. He encouraged them to hold on to their hopes, urging them to think of their loved ones waiting for them back home. Each conversation, each shared laugh, fortified the bonds between them, reminding Jack that they were not alone in this fight. They were a team, a family forged under one shared cause. When they finally approached the shores of Europe, the atmosphere changed dramatically. The once calm sea transformed into choppy waves, reflecting the chaos they were about to step into. Jack's heart raced as they prepared to disembark. The horizon was marred with smoke, the distant sounds of artillery thundering in the background. He felt a deepening resolve swell within him, tempered by the stark reality of the war that awaited. As the soldiers landed on the foreign soil, an eerie quiet settled over them. The battlefield was strewn with destruction, a stark contrast to the beauty of the land they had arrived in. Jack looked around, absorbing the grim sight. Buildings lay in ruins, and the remnants of a once thriving community now served as a haunting reminder of the cost of war. It was here that he understood the true gravity of his mission. Jack's unit was quickly integrated into the larger battalion. They were assigned to a frontline position, tasked with holding off enemy advances. The days blurred together, filled with drills, reconnaissance missions, and the deafening sounds of combat. Jack's training kicked in, and he found himself leading his comrades through the chaos, drawing from the lessons of resilience he had learned in his boxing career. Every skirmish tested their mettle, forging them into a stronger unit. Jack encouraged his fellow soldiers, reminding them to stay focused and alert. They were in a fight for their lives, and he was determined to keep their spirits high. His leadership shone through, and soon the younger soldiers began to see him not only as a former champion but as a soldier worthy of their respect. As weeks turned into months, stories of bravery emerged from the front lines. Jack's unit faced fierce opposition, but with every battle, they grew closer, bound by their shared experiences. He became known for his fierce determination and tactical mind, often adapting the strategies he had honed in the ring. Jack understood that just like boxing, war required both strength and strategy, and he was committed to navigating the challenges ahead. Amid the chaos, Jack's thoughts often drifted back home. He missed the cheers of the crowd, the thrill of victory, and the simple pleasures of life before the war. Yet, he knew that he was where he needed to be, fighting for a cause greater than himself. The camaraderie and shared purpose with his fellow soldiers filled the void, giving him a sense of belonging in this turbulent world. The war was far from over, and with every passing day, Jack's resolve deepened. He had traded the boxing ring for the battlefield, but the fight within him remained unchanged. He was an American soldier, proud and committed to his mission. As the battles raged on, he knew that each moment counted, and he would carry the spirit of resilience into every challenge they faced. In the midst of chaos and uncertainty, Jack Dempsey stood tall, embodying the heart of a fighter and the soul of a soldier. As stories of his bravery spread, so too did his legacy, inspiring others to fight for their country and each other. The world would remember him not just as a champion in the ring, but as a true American legend on the battlefield. If you are drawn to the tales of courage and resilience forged in the fires of war, subscribe to our channel. Join us as we explore more captivating stories from history that remind us of the strength of the human spirit. Together, we can honor those who fought bravely and ensure their stories live on. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jack Dempsey found himself on the deck of his ship, the USS Long Beach. The gentle sway of the ocean beneath his feet felt oddly comforting, yet the weight of impending conflict loomed heavy in the air. He had traded the adrenaline of the boxing ring for the unpredictability of the sea, and now, as part of a convoy heading into the heart of the Pacific Theater, he felt the gravity of his new reality. Each day brought with it rigorous drills and endless preparations. Jack had mastered the intricacies of the anti-aircraft guns, transforming from a champion fighter into a skilled sailor. As the ships gathered, each vessel in the convoy became a symbol of solidarity. From the seasoned veterans to the eager recruits, there was an unspoken bond that formed among them, a shared responsibility to protect their homeland and each other. Jack felt a surge of pride coursing through him as he stood shoulder to shoulder with these brave men who had stories etched into the lines of their faces, each one a testament to sacrifice and resilience. Weeks passed, and with them came the promise of action. The day finally arrived when they received orders to set sail into enemy territory. Jack stood on the deck, his heart pounding as he gazed at the vast expanse of water ahead. He thought about the friends he had left behind in the boxing world and the life he had once known. Yet, there was no time for nostalgia. The mission lay before him, and he was ready to face it head-on. The convoy moved with a steady determination, the ships slicing through the waves. Onlookers could see the tense expressions of the sailors, each man lost in his thoughts, the weight of responsibility etched on their faces. Jack felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, aware that the next moments would define not just his journey but the lives of those around him. He often remembered the stories told by the old sailors, tales that now felt eerily prophetic. They spoke of the chaos of battle, of aircraft raining down from the sky, and the unyielding spirit of those who fought beneath them. As they neared their destination, Jack's senses heightened. The air turned thick with anticipation, and the sounds of the ocean faded into an eerie silence. Suddenly, alarms blared, shattering the calm. A rush of adrenaline surged through Jack as he quickly took his position by the anti-aircraft gun. His training kicked in, and he focused on the feral roar of enemy planes approaching from above. The sky darkened as enemy aircraft descended, a menacing swarm determined to disrupt their mission. Jack's heart raced as he scanned the horizon. The first explosions echoed like thunder, sending shockwaves through the ship. He gripped the gun tightly, his hands steady despite the chaos around him. The crew sprang into action, their voices merging into a chorus of commands and reassurance. Jack took a deep breath, knowing he had to channel the spirit of the fighter he once was. With precision and determination, he aimed the anti-aircraft gun at the oncoming enemy planes. Each pull of the trigger felt like a punch thrown in the ring, fueled by focus and the will to protect. The first enemy aircraft spiraled into the water, trailing smoke, a victory that sent cheers erupting from the crew. Yet, the battle was far from over. More planes came, and with each one, the tension on the ship intensified. As the fight raged on, Jack felt an unfamiliar weight settling upon him. It was not just the burden of his own safety, but the lives of his fellow sailors that now rested in his hands. There were no more stories exchanged under the stars, it was all action now. The sounds of shouting and gunfire replaced the soothing calls of gulls, the ship transformed into a battlefield, and Jack became acutely aware of his role in this larger narrative. In those harrowing moments, he recalled the spirit of sportsmanship he had embodied in the ring, the importance of teamwork, of never backing down. Just as he had trained with others to hone his skills, he now relied on the camaraderie of his shipmates. They moved as one unit, each man understanding his role in the fight. Jack could feel the bond they had forged over the weeks, now solidified in the heat of battle. The dogfight continued, planes swooping and diving with relentless ferocity. Jack's focus narrowed, he could see the enemy pilot, a mere silhouette against the sun. With a steady hand, he fired again, the gun roaring to life, sending the plane spiraling out of control. The thrill of victory surged within him, but the reality of war chilled that exhilaration. For every plane downed, there were reminders of the danger looming overhead. As the battle finally shifted in their favor and the last enemy planes fled, a deafening silence enveloped the ship. Jack looked around at the faces of his fellow sailors, their expressions reflecting the raw emotions of survival. They had fought bravely, and though they had emerged victorious, the cost of war was not lost on him. The camaraderie they had built in the calm of the sea was now forged in the fire of battle. Days turned into weeks again, but the memory of that day lingered in Jack's mind. Each time they gathered on deck, the laughter felt heavier, the stories deeper. They were no longer just sailors, they were brothers in arms, bound by the shared experience of life and death. Jack often reflected on how far he had come, from the boxing ring to the vast ocean, fighting not only for his own honor but for the honor of his country and the safety of those who sailed with him. As the war raged on, Jack found peace in knowing that he was part of something greater than himself. He learned the value of resilience and sacrifice, lessons that transcended the ring. The sea had taught him that life, like boxing, was about endurance, about standing firm in the face of adversity. In the quiet moments, Jack would close his eyes and envision the cheers of the crowd that once filled the arenas. But now, it was the sound of waves crashing against the hull, the laughter of his shipmates, and the knowledge that he was doing his part to defend the freedom they all cherished. He had written a new chapter in his life, one filled with courage, sacrifice, and a sense of belonging. As the USS Long Beach sailed forward, Jack Dempsey embraced his new identity, knowing he was not just a fighter in the ring, but a soldier on the sea, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The legend of Jack Dempsey, the boxer-turned-sailor, was just beginning. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tales of courage and resilience. Join us as we explore the incredible stories of those who shaped our history and fought for a better tomorrow.